Hey everybody, I have graded your not discussion boards, your portfolios. I had to remember what I graded. Your portfolios, the final version, as well as your Typhon logs, that have been given feedback in Typhon. Typhon log wise, you guys are doing a great job. Everything looks good. Lots of insights, lots of really good experiences. I was very pleased to see that most of you have tracked your progress over the last 3 courses in where you have met your goals and objectives, so that by the end of this course, you're going to be able to say, okay, I've met my goals and objectives, and here are the dates, and here's how I've done that. So it's a great job. If for some reason you got feedback on your Typhon log that you're unclear about or you want to chat about, just touch base. Your portfolios were fantastic. So many of them are ideal examples of what we envisioned the use of this portfolio would look like from a graduate program. We spent a lot of time looking at varying tools that are out there that do portfolios from a private business standpoint. There are providers that do portfolios intent for professional development. But when we looked at the Blackboard option that was integrated into your learning management system, we felt like that was really kind of the easiest one to use and the one that integrated the best for you. And you guys really, over the 3 progressive assignments, repeatedly polished and finessed and made pretty all of your portfolios. So many wonderful headshots and pictures of you guys. You all are some pretty people. It was really nice to be able to, again, put faces with names and see you kind of in your own element. Some of you did very professional. Some of you did a little bit of personality with yours. All of them were great. A few of you did embedded videos. Let's see. Michelle and Tanya and Adrian and Charlene. I think those are the 4. There may be another one that I'm forgetting. Videos were fantastic. Lots of creativity. One of the things for portfolios, if you choose to maintain a professional portfolio in electronic sense, is if you're going to do a video, and this is what your peers did, is you keep it short and sweet. You introduce yourself in a way that becomes meaningful and personal and gives you a sense of who you are. Tell them what the portfolio is going to cover, and then segue into the beginning of your portfolio. Lots of really cool stuff. So I was really excited to see it. Some of you use the Spark platform, which, as I told you, was super easy. Otherwise, I wouldn't do it. So it was great to see you all not only get very confident and competent in using the Blackboard portfolio, but also embedding other technologies within that portfolio to really make it pop and really make it personal. Lots and lots of good stuff. Let's talk a minute about your Typhon logs. Typhon logs are great. What I want to tell you is many of you have hit your 200 hours required. If you have covered your 200 hours and you have met your goals and objectives, you may be wondering, what am I going to do with log 3? If you are in that boat, email me. You do not have to exceed the 200 hours. Again, your goals have to be, all of your goals and objectives have to be met, and you need to have the 200 hours within your time log. You're going to need a grade for that practicum log number 3, and there's some ways that we can accomplish that. So ask yourself those 2 questions. If you meet those criteria, email me privately and say, Dr. Hudgens, I've met all my goals and objectives. I have my 200 hours. I'd like some different ideas of what I can do for that last practicum log that would be helpful in completing my grade. So email me privately for that. Next week, you have your Integrative Literature Review Part 3. This is the final of the final piece of your progressive paper. As I have said in looking when you started Part 2, you needed to go back to Part 1. Well, Part 3, you're going to go at the very beginning of your paper, Part 1, and then revise and integrate Part 1 into Part 2 into Part 3. You will do yourself a favor if you, instead of starting with Part 3, you start at Part 1, polish and proof, and then go to Part 2, polish and proof, and then begin Part 3, versus writing Part 3 without making revisions to Part 2, because then you'll have to go back over and reintegrate everything. Start at the beginning and work your way through. Some things to remember. This is a professional APA paper that involved research. There should be an abstract on page 2. The use of level headings, level 1, 2, and 3, are expected in this paper. Level 4 may be used depending on how granular you got in your detail and broken down in your paragraphs. You do not have to submit your matrix in part 3. I don't need it as an attachment, and you don't have to use it as an appendix. That matrix was part of your process of developing your ideas and finding themes. You've accomplished that, and you've integrated that into part 2, so we don't need to have that attached again. If for some reason you want to have it embedded into your document and used as referenced into as an appendices or an appendix, you need to make sure you're using APA formatting in titling the appendix page and then referencing it into the body of your paper. Your part 3. Part 2, you thematically grouped and organized and analyzed. This is the stuff I found, or these are the common themes, the things that were similar. These were the dissimilar things, and you grouped them hopefully in a meaningful way. If you haven't, then you got to go back and do that. Part 3 is taking that analysis of these are the things I found and applying the findings to your research question. If your research question is simulation a better teaching methodology than didactic classroom setting education, then you're going to spend part 3 saying, this is what I found that answers this question, and these are this is what the authors said that lets me know I've answered my question correctly. You don't have to repeat everything you said in your analysis. You simply want to make statements. This is what I found. This is how it answers my question, and connecting all of the pieces to your research. You should be able to do that if you've done a good integrative literature summary through your matrix tool. So you're going to answer your research question, and you're going to use the literature and citations from part 2 to apply it to part 3 to answer that research question. You're going to deal with validity. You're going to say, this was my process, and I said it was my process in part 2. I did it in my I said my process in part 1. I applied it in part 2, and I know because I followed these steps, part 3 found what I said it was going to find. Okay? At some point, you need to address the validity of the value of the articles you found. So let's say I wasn't grading things and I was sleeping and I gave everybody hundreds and rainbows and kisses, and everyone got 100 on their matrix, and all of your matrix were filled with editorials and systematic reviews and commentaries and news articles, basically junk, except for the systematic reviews. We know they're fabulous, but you're not going to use them. So if you used gray literature to answer your question in part 3, the validity, even if you followed your process, the validity would be compromised because your originating sources are not scholarly. So start out and talk about just the general premise of how you identified scholarly literature, how were you sure that it was scholarly, and then go into, and because I use scholarly resources and I followed a rigorous process, this is what my validity looks like. You need to talk about the things that went well and the things that were challenging and questioned, that were limitations. That's what the publication journals will talk about, is validity and limitations. So what were the limitations? What prevented you from being fully able to explore a topic or find the exact right answer you had to make? The last thing you're going to address is the so what. And this is part 8. Answer the question of why this matters. If you were looking at the simulation versus didactic education, you need to be able to say, I found that simulation education improved critical thinking and better prepared students for clinical practice and decreased anxiety and increased student satisfaction. And all of this stuff matters because it directly relates to positive student outcomes and improved NCLEX scores and improved transition to practice. It also does a few other things, but those are in general. And be able to cite those references and where you found them in your literature. Part 3 should not be nearly as long as part 2, because that was really the lion's share of all of your analysis. Part 3 is just the application of and this is what I found, and this is why it matters, and this is why it may or may not be fabulous, and then answering the so what. That's it. Your reference list needs to be reconciled with what is still in your paper. So as you've edited, if you added references or subtracted references, you need to update your references. I think I said this before. The best way to do that is to print off your reference and your paper and go through your references. I would go through your paper, read your paper page by page, and for each reference you find, go in your reference list and check it off. As you go through your paper, if you get to your reference list and there are references on your list that you did not use in your paper, you need to delete them. There are references that are in your paper, circle them if they're not in your reference, and then you need to go find them. Okay? That's how you reconcile your reference page. Not doing that can lead to plagiarism, unintended, but plagiarism nonetheless. So you want to be very attentive to that process. Okay. I think that's about it. This information from your ILR 3, you're going to make into a poster in week 8. So know that that this is the last piece of the narrative, but you're going to take pieces and parts of this and make a lovely digital poster. And we'll talk more about that next week, but I do want you to understand that a piece of being a scholarly researcher isn't just being fabulous with looking at literature and writing a paper and being able to give a summary. A critical piece of this that nurse educators are not fabulous at doing is using what we find in dissemination. We don't tell other people what we found. So we're going to have you work on creating a poster that will be professional so that you can take and have it printed and present at a local scholarly exchange of some sort. So that's kind of the idea. If you have questions or concerns, please touch base. We are entering week 7. So you have week 7 and week 8 left, which means you are 2 weeks, 14 days, 13 days if you count back from today, from having your master's degree. Hang in there, guys. I know you're tired and the weather is not helping. It is about 81 degrees here in Roanoke. It is beautiful and breezy and sunny. I would much rather be outside playing than working, but fortunately you guys have kept it interesting today, so I've been disciplined and been good. Hang in there, guys. I know you're tired. I know you're weary. Know that I'm praying for you, that I want you to leave this program feeling like you've got something meaningful, feeling powerful and emboldened to go out there and embrace your role as a nurse educator, understanding what that looks like from the NL and core competencies. So I'm here. Let me know if I can help you in any way. If you've met those 200 hours and your goals and objectives, holler at me, send me an email, and let's chat. Y'all have a great week. Take care.